Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and today I want to do some brush cutting on this back field here and see how far I can work up into the tree line. But first, I've got a big rock pile right there that needs taken care of. I've got a couple big logs up the hill, and as I was walking out here, I remembered there's a huge concrete pad here. I'd like to just bust that concrete up and get it out of the way too, but not sure how thick it is and not sure if my machine can move it. So I'm gonna start by getting the grapple on the skid steer and come out here and try to clear this debris. Then we'll get the brush cutter put on the skid steer, and should be a lot of fun. It is a long trip with an 8-mile-per-hour skid loader to take these rocks all the way down to the hole where I'm using these as fill. And it would make more sense to do this with the dump trailer. But if you saw my video from 2 days ago, I've just got my truck stuck down here and I'm not looking to do it again. I could have hooked the dump trailer up to the tractor and probably done this, but I probably had 10 trips or less to make down here, so I just drove it with the skid loader. Here's a cool little thing that I probably should have already known, but just figured out. So I've got the trigger here that goes, grab it. So basically it seemed like I had fast and slow, but over here you've got a rabbit and a turtle. So I thought I just had 2 speeds, and I couldn't find out how the snail was different from regular speed, and it's got percentage increments. Just a little thing I figured out. You can't really see it because there's grass grown all the way across the top, but right in front of the camera here is an 8-foot by 10-foot slab of concrete. It sticks up about 4 inches, and I forgot it was here a couple times and almost flipped the tractor on it once. Moving these rock piles out of the way and busting up this concrete is really just the appetizer for today's video, which is really about trying to run the new brush cutter further up the hill where it's really rough terrain and there's quite a learning curve to it. Now that the Quonset hut's about done, I can really get started on getting this shed cleaned back out. This at one point was an organizational masterpiece, and now it's just stuff thrown everywhere. There was a lot more rocks and debris in there than I realized, but basically all that's gone. So this part down here will just be some light mowing. Then as I work up, it's gonna get thicker and thicker. It's still probably, a couple of them are good size, but mostly still pretty light duty for this brush cutter. I'm gonna get it switched over and get started. Here I'm going to lift it up and show you what the underside of the brush cutter looks like. It's got a stump jumper like a tractor bush hog, but it's got 3 blades instead of 2. And if you'll notice at the front next to the chains, there's some large casters that help keep your cutting blades out of the dirt. And the way this thing pivots a lot more than a 3-point, you really need that, because otherwise you could very easily get at a bad angle and do some damage. I don't normally show myself switching attachments every time like this, but I thought just this one time I'd leave in there in real time how long it actually takes, because switching attachments on the skid steer is, for the most part, quicker and easier than it is on the tractor. My guess is that 90% of operators don't go around hooking this chain up every time. But the manufacturer wants you to chain the brush cutter to this bar to prevent you from getting the brush cutter at a funky angle that could be a safety hazard. On this lower area, cutting was fairly straightforward. You just drive over it and it cuts through this material like nothing. But when we get a little higher up on the hill and more uneven terrain, it really bucks around, and there was a learning curve to it, I'll say it that way. So I've done all of this, which was the minimum I wanted to accomplish. Then it's a matter of how much further can I go. But as you look up this way, what it's hard to see with the ground cover is that there are giant rocks everywhere. Let's see if I can zoom in on some of this. Now, I was aware that there was this many big rocks here, and I just thought you lift the brush hog up, you cut up high above them so you can see what you've got, and you come back in with the grapple and you start picking rocks out. The problem with that, as big as these rocks are, when the tracks go over it, the machine is doing this, and it makes it a little bit more difficult than I expected to just cut above this. From this angle right here, it almost looks like I'm on flat ground and I'm just jerking the loader back and forth by being inconsistent with the controls or having the throttle too high, and that's not what's happening. Although I do have the throttle high because I want to maintain the blade speed. Primarily what's happening here is I'm driving across the area I just showed you the rocks in, and those rocks are sticking up so high that it just jerks the machine all over the place when I move. When I make a video like this, it sounds like I'm complaining, but this machine, with a rookie operator, did exactly what I needed it to do, and I got all of this area cleared. I'm just explaining the difficulties I ran into so that you guys have a feel for what it's like to run one of these brush cutters on terrain like this. Once I managed to get quite a ways up the hill with the brush cutter, I switched back to the grapple with the thought that I would just go through and rip out a bunch of these rocks. Well, that worked to a certain extent, but not the way I hoped it would, because a lot of these rocks are the size of a beach ball. So, to fully dig them out with a grapple that's 7 foot wide, you're going to dig a huge hole for each rock, and it's just wall-to-wall rocks. So, the skid steer can dig these rocks out, but it's not practical to clear all the rocks that are sticking up in this area. So, I got what I could and moved on. I've actually come up on this hill to get this log 2 separate times with the tractor, and I wasn't able to get it out. The first trip I busted it in half and pulled the other half out. The second trip I decided to just get a smaller log that was further up the hill. So I wanted to get this one out today, and of course for the skid loader it was no problem at all. You know, the really interesting thing about a log like this that may have been on the ground for years and years is I bet that the inside of that is still solid for firewood. I don't know how well you could see that, but basically what we've got is 12-inch diameter rocks with about 2-inch gaps in between them. It's just a solid sheet of rock. If I really wanted to make this usable, I would either need a bulldozer to just shove a lot of it back, or I could have a mini excavator sit here and pick rocks out and pile them and then haul them off, and then put down a layer of topsoil. It's not worth all that today, but the big part of this, everything from where I'm at back to that big tree, is pretty well cleared, and I can keep that mowed now and over time pick more rocks out of it. So I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links over here to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.